Hello and welcome to the Florida Golf Experience. In this podcast, we help the average golfer improve their game through great stories, meeting professional golfers and professionals in the industry. So sit back and enjoy these wonderful stories we have with the professionals and great tips from the local pros. So hello and welcome to Florida Golf Experience. My name's Dan Henson, the amateur here, and I have Christian Martin, the pro, with me and my co-host. Welcome, Christian. We're ready for another day?
Absolutely, Dan. Looking forward to it.
Who's our special guest do we have today?
Billy Kratzert is our special guest today.
Nice.
I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to speak with him. You know, he's been a PGA Tour player. He has 4 wins. He's been in the broadcast booth for many, many years. He's going to be an enjoyable guest.
Yeah, I think so, and I'm excited to kind of let him know that he's an SAE when it comes down to the frat guys. I don't know much about it because I didn't make it all the way through college. My son just did, and him and my son were in the same fraternity, so it's going to be fun to talk about. So I hope you guys stick around, enjoy this conversation with Billy Kratzert, 4-time PGA champion, 5th in the Masters in '78, 6th tied for 6th U.S. Open, and a well-respected golf announcer. You know, as we move forward and talk about some of those wins, which one of those wins stuck out the most in your mind? Or
well, I think anytime you win, for the first time, Woody and I, we teamed up at the Disney team play, and we beat Bobby Nichols and Gabe Brewer in a playoff. So yeah, that was big. But winning Hartford was big for me in '77, and going down, the final few holes, the guy that I was trying to catch after I had the lead, then he got the lead, was Curtis Strange.
Okay.
And then I finally got the lead back, and then I teed off first on the 18th hole, and it's kind of just a straightaway par 4, about out of bounds on the right-hand side, and I hit kind of a fairway finder, and Curtis kind of just had a misstep, and he hit it out of bounds, and then it was over.
You struggled there for a little while, and then you thought maybe golf's not for me, and then you went back to Q school, you found your path, and then ultimately becoming a broadcaster. Was it hard to make the transition from player to broadcaster, or was that just seem natural for you?
I don't think it was natural. I think it's always hard to do because you never want to relinquish that either dream or fact that, what, these guys are younger. You're approaching 45. You can't really compete against those guys. And in '97, there was a guy named Tiger Woods that hit the scene, and so you just kind of go, you just kind of go, okay, that's pretty much it. And then I had the opportunity with ESPN to jump on with them, and I was with Roger Twibell and Andy North and Bruce Devlin, and so there was a learning curve there because they just kind of just hand you a microphone and say, just be yourself. And so, well, sure, yeah, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to throw 3 or 4 jokes out there right away. I'm going to be great. So
the dad jokes.
Yeah, I mean, so you kind of find your way, kind of work your way into it, and there are good times, there are bad times. Guys will get a little upset if they can hear your voice, or if they hit a bad shot. I'm pretty sure they heard my voice. So
well, yeah, as a golfer, it's never our fault. Somebody moved in the audience, or somebody said something. It's not us, man.
No.
Well, we kind of feel like we're in the Q school stage of broadcasting right now because we're brand new to this thing. So having a guy like you on here, any advice you can give us to smooth things out a little bit?
Well, I think you have a different position than what I have, and my position when I'm on course, brevity is gold. Economy of words when I'm out there because you're actually viewing, you're watching on TV. I mean,
Right.
there's nothing I can add if you can see it.
Right.
I have to listen to the conversation between player caddy, or if there was a commercial break and there was a rules situation. So I have to go over there and gather all the details and who the official was and, what all transpired. So mine is all about what the viewer can't see. If I'm out there and I'm going, well, he's got 148 yards. I can't add much more. If he's in the middle of the fairway, 148 yards to a right-hand hole location, 3 from the edge, you just can't miss right.
Right.
That's it. You're in and out. And then you wait for the shot. Typically you don't call a shot in the air unless you absolutely 100% know that it's really good or really bad. So I think the biggest thing is being concise, being accurate. If you make a mistake, you correct it.
That was kind of leading into a question I had, and he kind of probably already answered it. But is there anything that you learned as a broadcaster that you didn't know when you were a golfer? Like, did you pick anything up out there that, because now you've been around it so long, that you didn't quite know on the course that now you know because you became a broadcaster?
So far as course situations and the conversations that go on between player and caddy, I would say that they play more by the data that they get when they're on the range warming up. They all have their TrackMan or Flight Scope or whatever device that they have to measure ball speed, launch, and all that stuff. And a lot of times they'll put that into play. I think that's the only thing that I can see that is a massive difference in the way that you would manage yourself around the golf course. So far as the technical aspect of the game and what they do with the golf swing, speed is such a critical component of what these guys do today because of the equipment allowing it. The equipment allows you to go at 126 mile per hour swing speed to where you can produce 188 to 192 ball speed.
Yeah.
And that's what these guys do. The premium on driving accuracy is pretty much out the window. I would say the least important stat, in my opinion, is fairways hit. Really don't make any difference because the courses on the PGA Tour are pretty much the same. Agronomically, they're going to get that golf course pretty much in the same condition as they saw the week before. The only difference that guys have is if you come from the West Coast where you have the Poana, then you come to the East Coast, then you have the Overseed, then you go up to Augusta, and then after Augusta, then you come back down, then there's no Overseed, now you go into the Bermuda. But I'm telling you, the superintendents, what they can do with a golf course, whether it be Bermuda grass, bent grass, Overseed, Po Trivialis, you just start going down the names of the grasses. They can get it to where it is going to be PGA Tour quality and running, I'm going to say 10-5 to 12 pretty much every week, every single week. Right. So there's really no adjustment to what I think green speeds, that's not a big concern. Whether, you have to look at the undulations, the interior contouring of the green, then you kind of look at the exterior. That's what these guys do. But I will say these guys can use a 60-degree wedge so effectively, and they can make the most difficult shots look ordinary. And I think that's a big change as well. So I think the data and then the clubs themselves that they use around the green, along with their talent, they're able to get the ball up and down with 4-foot putts, where before that kind of became one of the clubs that you were going to put in the bag, you were probably going to have to be accepting of maybe a 10 or 12-foot putt.
Right. Yeah, it's made a big difference.
I think that explains the difference of Christian hitting the ball and me hitting the ball, because he's a professional and a trainer, and I'm a guy that shoots in the low 90s. Trying to pull some of the stuff off these guys do is just not in my bag, and then you watch it. And then I picked up a good tip from, I think it was you or another person. A guy like myself should go watch the lady tour, watch them swing speed, because we're all trying to swing so hard, but the women hit so smooth and fluent that's a guy that shoots in the 90s should be doing, slowing it down a little bit. But, it's a different world for me. So,
well, I think that's valid, but I think the biggest thing that you can pick up, and Christian can certainly address it, I think the biggest thing is, and it's been a lost word in the teaching profession, but rhythm in the golf swing. It used to be when I first came out on tour, guys would correct a flaw by swinging easier and swinging smoother to where everything synced up. Because when you look at the golf swing, if it's not in the proper sequence and you don't work from the ground up, and I'm not talking about the force to where you pull back up to hit the long drive. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the lower half moves, it leads. It's almost like the train and the caboose. And if you learn that if you have a nice smooth transition and you can kind of just gradually pull the caboose along, and you don't make that sudden move and then you stop and then that caboose comes up behind you. If you can work rhythm into your golf swing, that is hugely beneficial for someone that shoots, around 90. And the harder you try to hit the ball, the more you're going to tighten up, the more you're going to lose club head speed, and it's kind of a snowball effect. But I think rhythm is a word, and Butch Harmon and I were talking about it at Augusta. No one ever talks about how you should do the transition, how the smoothness of the transition should be. I mean, it's kind of like just taking a paintbrush, and when you get it back, you just take that paintbrush and feel like you're just going down a wall as smoothly as you possibly can, no streaks. Yeah, I think when I go back over my career and I look at the players today, I can look at the players, and Corey Connors is a great example. I'm going to say you look at Cameron Young, Hideki. These are all players that kind of gather it to the top, and then it's just kind of a nice unload of everything.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think when you start looking at the golf swings and you start looking at what you can do and what you can't do, because you pretty much have to make sure that the grip of the club, and if you swing too hard, the grip of the club, the butt end of it, is going to travel too far. And if it travels too far, something has to slow down in order to make contact with the golf ball.
Right.
And so, yeah, what you do transition-wise is hugely important.
Right. Well, Bob Murphy was one of the original guys that, I always used to say Bob Murphy used to have lunch at the top of his backswing.
I was going to say, yeah, Murphy, Jay Haas, they took timeouts and then they started.
They did.
Yeah.
But it was.
But I would venture to say that every player that feels like they have a significant amount of time at the top of the golf swing,
right,
they can hit any shot they want.
Correct.
It's almost like it's almost like it's a drill. My dad would always go, okay, we'll go down and hit balls. And then I would go ahead and I would take a backswing, and then he'd say draw. So then I would kind of figure it out and then hit the shot. Then he may say low, and then he may say fade. And so it kind of taught me to be a little quieter up here, create more time where there's not one rush movement.
No, I like that. Create more time, because then you can feel where you are and you have the opportunity to do many different things with it. So
yeah,
like
Jamie
that.
Mulligan has a nice little saying. Because he coaches Cantlay, and we were talking the other day, just PGA, and I said, "You still trying to get Patrick to put the club to sleep at the top?" He says, "We're always trying to do that."
The only problem is Cantlay needs to wake up the rest of the time because he's a little bit deliberate. His pace of play could improve. Sorry, Patrick.
It could. I mean, I think many players, and it's been addressed. I think it's going to continue to be addressed. I know that they can use the DMDs, distance measuring devices, but I don't think that's going to be a big deal. I think a bigger deal is going to be the self-policing, and then okay, you're out of position, and on that first bad time, they pop you with a stroke, and the second one, it's 2 strokes.
That's going to get their attention a whole lot quicker than a little fine.
Yeah, it hits the pocketbook quick.
Yeah, I mean, when you start looking at these players, I mean, you can find them $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. Doesn't make any difference.
Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
doesn't make any difference.
But there are a couple of. But if you don't do that, then what you need to do is maybe implement the loss of FedEx Cup points, because then if you're kind of on the edge of the 70, the 50, the 30, and then you get a bad time, then all of a sudden you go from being exempt into all the signature events to not being exempt. There's a lot of ways that they can approach this.
Yep.
Do I think smaller fields, is that going to help? Well, yeah. I mean, smaller numbers, they can get around the golf course. I would say that probably the optimum number is one, talking to all the rules officials and looking at all the data. I would say that 120 is the optimum number. But I also think that may be too small. I think you need to maybe go to 132, and unless you have 2 golf courses, and then of course you can split it up and maybe go to 156. But I think there's a lot of ways to approach it. I'm just glad that they're finally looking at it in a serious manner, because there have been so many complaints.
Yeah, it seems like that's it always comes up every week when you hear you guys talking about the golf game. It seems to come up in a conversation in the 4 days. It always pops up somewhere in conversation. So,
what was your take on Scotty and Xander having the mud ball there on the 16th hole or whatever, and you got to play it. It's the rules. We know the rules, but should they address something like that? I mean.
Here's where I stand on that, because I was with the group and I saw the ball. I saw the mud on the ball, and quite frankly, I was wondering what kind of shot they were going to play, because most players I see playing that shot are going to hit it downstairs. They're going to keep it low. They're going to put it on the fairway quick. Scuttle it up there someplace near the green, and then get it up and down. They understand what that lie can do. Now,
right.
I hear Scotty's argument. You practice all your life. to hit fairways and to hit greens. Well, not every place is pristine, and not every place is going to avoid 5 inches of rain. So that's just one of the things that you have to contend with as a player. And
Right.
so, it's like Tampa Bay going up and playing Green Bay at the end of December. Is Tampa ready, to go up there in 3 degrees?
No.
So, you always have to understand that sometimes you're just going to get the rub of the green, and it's not going to go your way. And, he got enough good breaks for the week, and he kind of figured it out, and he went from there. I would say that a rule that I would change, because everyone talks about the divots involved, with sand divots that maybe should be relieved. I will say that whether it's your pitch mark or it's someone else's pitch mark in the fairway, if you happen to roll into one of those pitch marks, I think you should be allowed relief. I don't think you should have to play out of a hole.
Well, that's ground under repair. If you just want to be basic about it. In the middle of the fairway, you're in the rough, you're in the rough. Middle of the fairway, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, because the pitch marks were significant. And it's happened to Shane Lowry. I saw it on video because he was really mad. And but that, the more I thought about it, I went, you know what? Everyone's talking about sand divots that you should probably get relief and all that. Well, you know what? Maybe they ought to look at golf courses that after heavy rain, and if you're not going to play the ball up and down, whether it's your pitch mark or another pitch mark, if you're in it and your playing partners agree that it is a pitch mark from another tee shot or whatever, or your tee shot, I think you should be allowed relief.
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
Definitely makes sense. Well, you do a lot of stuff out on the course, and it was kind of neat for you to explain that you're kind of painting a story for us that we don't get to see, during commercial breaks and so forth. Is there any comical things that you're allowed to express while you've been walking the course with these guys that you won't get in trouble for?
These guys try to keep it as light as they possibly can. They're gonna tell some jokes and situations or what they saw on social media and stuff like that. But I would say I think the guys actually play for so much money now that there's really, the humor is kind of either prior or after the round. And so I think with the purses, because when you look at it, you have 8 signature events, and you think about it in these terms, you have 8 signature events. Then you have your 4 majors. So that's 12. Now all of a sudden you have the Masters, or you have the Players. So that's 13. Then if you've played your way into the playoffs, and then you advance all the way to the Tour Championship, that's 16 events. In those 16 events, you will play for $500 million.
Jeez. Yeah. Wow.
I
didn't think about that way.
That's
a lot of money.
So they're not joking. It's got to be serious time when you're on the course. When you're on the grass, you got to be serious.
Absolutely. Once your cleats hit, but once your shoes hit the first tee, it's go time.
So when you were playing on the tour, who was the biggest character out there? Who was the guy that everybody's like, oh my God, here he goes again?
Oh, there was a guy. Ed Fiore, he was quite the character. I mean, Billy Ray Brown, he was a character. It was so far as being off the grid, there were a few of them.
Yeah.
And it was a different way. I mean, we had the opportunity to qualify on Monday. It was top 60, wasn't top 125. If you made the cut, you were automatically in the following week. There were ways that when Gary and myself and Calc got to the tour, there were different ways that if you were not exempt in that top 60, then you could kind of, if you had a top 25, then you were in that tournament the following year. So there were ways that you could accumulate enough tournaments that you could, if you happened to play poorly in one of those, you could bridge it to where you didn't have to qualify on every Monday, unless you never finished in the top 25. If you didn't finish in the top 25 in 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 events, then maybe you should be selling a sleeve of Titleist in the pro shop.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, we talk about Florida golf a lot, and I know you've been around here. What would be your favorite golf course down here in Florida? To play.
Well, living in Ponte Vedra, I have the Stadium. It's a hard golf course. Although when they get here, they make it look a lot easier. In fact, if they played the golf course when it first opened in the 80s, if they had that golf course to play, the scores wouldn't be nearly as good. Course used to be much tougher than what it is now. I like Seminole. I like Bay Hill. I like Old Memorial, where Gary Koch has his event every year.
Yes.
So I would kind of say I'd still have to stick with probably the Stadium golf course.
Okay.
Pete Dye. I've always thought it interesting that when you play it for the first time, the sight lines can get a little confusing, but I like it.
That's great.
I haven't played that many courses in the Ocala area to where they have a little different terrain, to where they have some elevation changes, like over towards Tallahassee. They have some of that as well. Concession down in Sarasota.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
I think I like the layout. I think the greens are severe.
A little too much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of the places where I've got a sand wedge in my hand at the concession, and I'm praying to hit the right part of the green. Because if you miss the right part of the green, you're dead there.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. You have to kind of play to a spot. And
to a spot.
Again,
every hole.
Again, the two most important qualities that you can have playing professional golf is attitude and acceptance. And acceptance being, okay, I'm going to make no more than bogey, and I just hit a bad shot.
Right.
You just can't get too far out in front. Once you get your head out over the skis too far, you're going down.
Yeah, forget about it.
All downhill, but you're tumbling downhill, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I do appreciate your time. I don't want to take too much time. I did have one more question. You probably already answered it because, myself being a low 90s and him being a professional, I always ask anybody that'll give us an extra hint. As an amateur golfer, what would be your best tip? I probably know most of the answers because Christian tells me every time, but what would be your key tip for, somebody's trying to improve their game?
Like what area of the game would you think they should focus on?
Short game. If you want to lower your score, if you can raise your skill set around the greens, your bunker play, your pitching, your chipping. If you understand shots where you just automatically grab a sand wedge, okay, you may take a hybrid and run it up the slope, or you may take a 5-iron, 8-iron. I mean, you can save stroke. You can save more strokes that way than you can striking the golf ball. You can always improve striking the golf ball, and you can minimize the spread. You know, you can go from an aerosol can to where you spray it everywhere to where, you know, you can kind of frame it a little bit and keep it right in front of you. There's an old saying, you know, just keep it in front of you and you're going to be fine. But I would say short game. And if you want to just kind of go in the opposite direction to the long game, there's nothing more important to me than for amateurs to complete. And we spoke about it earlier, complete the backswing. If you do not complete the backswing, the sequence is going to go out of whack.
Absolutely.
Duly noted. What you got? Any last questions here?
No,
you've been great. I do appreciate your time. I mean, can't wait to see you. When's your next broadcast coming up?
I'm going to do Canadian Open.
Okay.
Then I'm going to take the U.S. Open off, and then I'm going to do Travelers, which used to be Hartford. So those are the two that I'm going to do in June. And then before you know it, I mean, we're going to be in July. I usually take July off. And then the 3 FedEx Cup playoff events. And then the Ryder Cup's right around the corner and the season's over. And then
happens too quick.
And I mean, the Ryder Cup's going to be crazy good. I think
it is good.
And Keegan finished in a tie for 8th this past week at the PGA Championship. He's trying to make the team on his own, so
he might do it.
It's going to be interesting. But after the Ryder Cup, I'm all about Georgia football.
All right,
exactly.
Well, FSU's got some work to do, so I don't know what we're doing there, but hopefully Norvell can figure that out. So,
well, I hope so. We, between Georgia, Auburn, West Virginia, Indiana, and Florida State, those are the 5 in the family.
Yeah.
So
you got a lot to watch.
It's a nice rivalry on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm sure you have some good conversations on Saturdays.
Well, we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
We do very much. I appreciate it. Hopefully we can get you again, and we'll stay organized and learn from your lessons. We'll watch you on TV and see if we can pick up any tips from you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Christian.
Appreciate you.
All
Thank
right.
you
Thanks,
so
Billy.
much.
Appreciate
it. You got it.
What a great time we had with Billy Kratzert today. You know, I mean, it's so great when we talk to these guys that are, you know, have gone through the pros in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and then we get to hear the stories, how they compare it. You know, what was one of the big takes you think we got from Billy today?
Well, you know, it seems like everybody we ask the same question, and we always get the same answer, like what the amateurs should be working on.
Right.
And it's mostly the short game.
We said what? We're 5 for 5 or 6 for 6?
We're 5 for 5 on that. So it's almost, if we don't ask the question, it's going to be the same answer. But I want to ask the question so that we can, everybody, because look, these are the industry insiders, right?
Right.
So if they're all telling the amateur players, work on the short game, become a master of something you can actually become a master of. Mm-hmm. You're not going to hit it 300 yards. We're older. We're even the younger guys. Most of them aren't going to hit it 300 yards. Everybody can hit it 50 yards,
right,
or less. Become a master of that domain. That's what we're after.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I mean, you know, he had an interesting career where he had left the game, got into a real job, and then, you know, went back into the game. But then he came in pretty strong. He had 4 PGA wins. You know, I mean, to even tie 5th for the Masters in
Tie
78,
fifth,
tie
78.
6th for the U.S. Open, and then has such a great broadcasting career, and then, we checked in and said, hey, how can we learn? And I guess we just found out it's a little bit different what we're doing than what he's doing.
True.
Yeah. I mean, he got thrown to the wolves too, kind of what we were doing to ourselves here.
Right. Here's a mic. Run with
Just
it.
make it run. But, he definitely has a really good perspective on what's going on the course now, because he does so much of that out there. So
Yeah, he does. And one of the other takes I took from him is he was something that I preach when I'm working with people is complete your backswing.
Mm-hmm.
If you complete your backswing, now you have something to transition forward.
So that being said, because I'm an amateur and you're a professional and you teach us every day, to the average guy, what does that mean?
Well, and obviously different age levels and different skill levels, like a 20-year-old is going to be more flexible than I am.
Right.
Okay. But where there is an end of the road,
Mm-hmm.
get to the end of the road in the backswing, and that you want to still stay solid. You don't want to collapse up here, but you want to make your backswing. But there are some examples on the PGA Tour now and on the Live Tour now. Tony Finau doesn't take it parallel to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
John Rahm doesn't take it parallel to the ground. But they still get to the end of where their end is.
Gotcha.
Everybody needs to find out, flexibility-wise, shoulder turn-wise, where can I go and not lose control? And it's hard to dial that in, but if you're working with a professional, he can help you find that spot, and then you got to work on just achieving that.
So when you talk about that backswing, so you take that, put it in my layman's terms, when you're going to find that spot, probably from what I can take from it is a lot of times people go back too fast. I mean, just like whip or something like that,
Well, 100%. He talked about tempo, or he talked about the sequence of the swing. All the tour players will tell you if they want to hit it further, they slow their backswing down.
Okay.
If they slow the backswing down, it enables them to make a better shoulder turn, but they also can feel where the shoulders and the hands are.
Okay.
Quick to quick. There's a handful of people that played on the PGA Tour that quick to quick.
Look at DeChambeau.
Right. And, Nick Price from the old days,
Right.
very fast golf swing. But they're rare. He talked about Hideki. He talked about Cameron Young. We talked about one of the old school guys, slight pause.
Mm-hmm.
Ever so slight. It can be just like that, but then you're done, and now you can transition forward. If you do that, you're going to hit more quality golf shots and keep the ball in front of you, like he said,
Right.
instead of getting it off the golf course. So.
I think it's interesting also that one of the questions we had, and I actually got it from a friend of mine's father. It's a big golf guy, and he was kind of, who's the comedian out there in a sense, and I think that I didn't realize how it's become so serious, and you kind of picked up on it quickly, because I think he brought up there's so much money on the line now that it becomes much more of a job. Now, I'm sure everybody was trying to win always, but, I think, you think about the old movies like, Animal House or something like that, how that cut up was maybe in the 70s and 80s, you could push buttons a little bit more, but these guys have their stuff so dialed in, are so big and strong, and they're so athletic now. And he said, what, $500 million in prize money on the line in a year?
That's a lot of money.
I guess it's something to be serious about.
But the other thing on that, too, is with social media these days, they can't say or do anything that you and I can say on
That's a
Sunday
good point.
morning playing golf, because they just say the wrong word. Somebody's going to crucify them.
Yeah, that's a good point. That never came up, but the only place you probably get away is the Masters, because you can't have a phone on the Masters. But
Right.
but people probably pick up on your lip sync.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Guys can't joke around with somebody out there now, because there's going to be a group of people out there that are going to get offended. And
Yeah, but I love the game. I'm not that great at it, but I do listen to you sometimes, and the other times obviously I don't, and that's why the ball's in the water. But I think it does come down to practice and how much time you're getting out there. It's starting to get hot now.
it is.
But,
It's harder to do now.
I try to get out early as I can.
Yeah. So don't be a ball beater on the driving range this time of year.
Yeah.
hit 50 quality shots instead of going, I'm going to go hit 300 balls a day. It's 100 degrees in the shade. You're not going to do it anyway. You're going to get worn out.
Might as well go to the chipping green, right? Like you said.
Exactly. Just, get a few touches.
Yeah.
Don't have to get a few hundred. Just get some touches as often as you can.
And I think I've learned from you from these first 5 podcasts and just talking in general is how mental this game is and how try not to let you get in your own way, right? I mean, you're going to have a certain amount of physical ability and you're going to adjust to it. But mental is going to be 75% of the game a lot of times that,
no question.
That's why you call it old man golf, which I've been getting close to. The guys that are hitting at 180 down the middle every time, they're in the middle.
They're in the middle.
I think I like 180 in the middle as opposed to 227 or 240 and over by the trees looking for a ball.
Somebody's backyard.
Yeah.
Playing another golf ball. So, and understanding who you are, what your limits are, play to your strengths. Play smart, play educated golf. Your golf IQ is so much more valuable than anybody even realizes.
Yeah.
Is how you think and plot your way around the golf course.
That's the biggest thing for me. Not to get too much into ourselves, but since doing this, I'm talking to you for a while, and obviously talking to my son because when I play with him, he's learned from you, and he's very good at what he does. He talks about the short game, but. I getting back into the course management and the mental. When I'm 227 yards out and I have water by the green, I'm not going for it.
Right.
He can, but I can't. There's probably a 65% chance I'm going to go in the water.
Right.
But if I break out a 9-iron and I get it up there, 140.
Right.
I'm much better off to take that shot at it than even knowing that there's
clearly it's easier to hit a 125-yard shot over the water than a 250
exactly. So and I look at that. I always say that number 9 on Tatum. Because you get because you can drive it into the water, but if you hybrid it up there, then I can get over the edge and maybe over there. But every time. Couple guys I play with were, they're in the water 60% of the time because they drive it there.
you got to understand the risk reward factors. There are times in everybody's round where, okay, this is a defining moment.
Yeah.
And it either makes a day or it can put a damper.
Now, if you're beating the boys by about 10 or 12 strokes, you got some playroom. But if you're only within 3 and you're playing for the trophy,
right.
We have a little trophy. You guys have a little different game going on, but we have a trophy we pass around.
Right.
And it's bragging rights. But, I have to say I won last week, so I'm pretty happy about that. Thank you for watching the Florida Golf Experience podcast. We hope you enjoyed the stories and the tips and tricks you get from the pros here. And on the next episode, we hope to help you improve your game. See you on the next one.